Hi there. Every now and again, I like to go through this little phase where I look over every element in Genshin. You can actually see this happening in real time if you go back and look at the very first couple of videos I posted on this channel. Because if you could believe it or not, when the elemental system is one of the most unique things in Genshin, it becomes one of the most unique things to talk about, especially when you're discussing the evolution of an element and how sometimes it just ends up getting dropped over time. In my last video, I talked about the Dendro element, which, in my opinion, has become one of the most forgotten elements in the game. It's not completely useless, matter of fact, I think it's still one of the best elements you can pick up as a player who's new to the game, but it definitely has dropped a lot of its support over time. Hell, it's not even popular for what it used to be, which was an elemental reaction damage dealing element that heavily relied on powerful team comp. Its two most recent representatives are just nukers that just so happen to have the Dendro element tied to them. However, they're far from the only unit in the game that's like this. I would say that Cryo is definitely up there. However, Cryo is a bit of a weird one. Whereas Dendro were able to tie back a specific reason as to why it might be dropping its support due to oversaturation throughout the Sumerian region, I really couldn't tell you why Cryo got the butt end of the stick here. But I have an idea, and I'm willing to tell you all about it. But first, don't skip. I swear to God, it's not an ad. I'm doing another giveaway. Last time, I gave away a real, legitimate wooden door, hinges and all, and I'll happily show you the winner. But this time, I'm giving away a broken window pane. That's right, a fully legitimate broken window pane from a house that I recently vandalized. All you have to do is like, comment, and subscribe. I know a lot of you are returning viewers, and I don't shout my own stuff out enough, so if you do support me, then thank you, appreciate it. But before we continue, it's time to pay my editors. This time, we're sponsored by LDShop. Look man, I play a lot of gacha games. I know you do too. Things get pretty expensive after a while, so it's nice to be able to get a little bit of a discount here and there, because at the end of the day, every cent saved is a cent earned. And by using LDShop, you'll be saving a lot of cents. LDShop offers up to a 20% discount on all in-game items. And if you want, you could save a little bit more money, with the link down below earning you up to an additional $50 off your next order. And because I'm not one to just throw you to the wolves and have you figured out for yourself, don't worry, I actually tested out the service myself. As you can see, we're currently in Genshin, as you can tell by my ugly filters that you all love to comment on so much. Gonna go on over to LDShop, go to Genshin, get one of the 3 welcome packs. Make sure you select the right server. If you don't, there's nothing you can do for you. Put in the ID. I just copy pasted mine directly from in-game, by the way. You can add me if you want to. And then top up. Alright, and now that the transaction's completed, we're just gonna wait in-game for a little bit and get our item. Okay, there it is, as soon as I alt-tab back into the game. 1, 2, 3. As you can all see, I got my 122 items pretty much immediately. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So there you go. Save yourself some money. Use the link in the description. Really helps support the channel. That all being said, let's get back into the video. But I know, you don't care about door or window giveaways. You care about why Cryo has been forgotten. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Unlike a lot of the other elements in Genshin, where I can tie down a specific reason, I really don't know why Cryo has been dropped as of recent time. You see, back in my day, Cryo used to be one of the most meta-dominating elements in the entire game. Hell, I would say in the beginning of Genshin, Cryo was the best element in the game. You had access to characters like Ganyu and nobody else, who was the single-handed most powerful unit in the game bar none at the expense of having the world's most boring gameplay. And Ganyu dominated on 2 of the best teams at the time, which were Ganyu Melt comps and Morgana comps. And if you didn't play back in version 1.0, you don't really understand how strong Morgana teams were. Morgana teams were usually Sucrose or Venti, Ganyu, Mona, and some sort of Diona or Freeze character like Rosaria. You would stack as many buffs as you can, group up the enemies with CC, keep them frozen, launch the Ganyu burst so the icicles AoE splash everybody while pelting them with arrows. And while nowadays I'm sure the team isn't that strong, you need to remember that this was back in early 1.2 to 1.5 Genshin, where pretty much much every single Spiral Abyss was nothing but enemy waves. Ganyu completely dominated any and all competition that could have existed at time. She was the premier #1 DPS in the game, and Cryo had some pretty decent supports at the time, with Chongyun being one of the main drivers people would use for the OG national comps, Diona being one of the best healers in the game and a necessity for nuke comps, and then Rosaria being the first official crit rate buffer in the entire game. And they kinda kept this going up into version 2.0 with the release of Ayaka. Ganyu was so dominating all the way back in version 1.2 that players were unironically fighting over if Ganyu or Ayaka were better. Now, as far as I'm aware, they're two different tools for two different jobs, but when the best DPSs in the game are both Cryo, then it kinda paints a pretty decent picture for you. Cryo also had some of the best 1.0 reactions in the game, like Melt and Freeze. And I know Freeze is considered a joke nowadays, but I assure you, if there is any Spiral Abyss where Freeze comps work and they are not just completely nullified by enemy CC immunity, use it. It's really overpowered. Bring it in against a Wake Up and watch in awe as they cannot move and you shred through their entire health bar in 15 seconds. Any enemy that has a shielding mechanic that isn't immediately active upon their spawn no longer has a shield with Freeze comps. Splash damage becomes incredibly overpowered, and Cryo only really got stronger than this with the release of characters like Shenhe. However, unlike what a lot of players would want to push, Shenhe really didn't have a very major change in the meta of the game. You see, by the time Shenhe came out, we already had Hu Tao double Hydro teams, which they were just better. The DPS ceiling was definitely getting a lot higher, and Shenhe's unique kit was, okay, well, there's no nice way to say it. She was completely neutered. The reason why Shenhe did not have a very big shift in the meta of Cryo is because so few characters can actually use her skill, because the buff she applies wears off after 5 hits. Meaning the only character who can take full advantage of it is Ayaka if you swap back to Shenhe and use her skill after 5 hits of the elemental burst. Ganyu actually doesn't have enough time to get 5 Frostbloom spikes off before it wears off, unless you're hitting with the main arrow first, which does so much less damage than the bloom it's not even worth using. As a matter of fact, your DPS would lower if you were using something like Vape Ganyu, especially because a lot of the teams you were using at the time would give up a quality of life slot in order to put Shenhe on the team, and you wouldn't even get more damage. And unfortunately, this 5-hit buff curse has afflicted Shenhe throughout her entire release, to the point where even new Cryo characters don't even want to use her. Not that there were many opportunities for Shenhe to shine, because for some reason, MiHoYo just completely forgot about Cryo, for I don't even know why. Cryo has been the most absent element in Genshin Impact for as long as I can remember. In the version 1.0 cycle, we got Ganyu, Diona, and Rosaria, and that was it. In version 2.0, we got Ayaka and Shenhe, and then that was it. In version 3.0, I'm pretty sure we didn't even get a Cryo character, period. I actually just looked, we got Mika, so we got nobody. In the version 4.0 patch cycle, we got 3 in the form of Fermine, Risley, and of course, Charlotte. And then, the developers just completely forgot Cryo was in the game because none of the Cryo characters reran for a whole year. There was a point in time, about a year and a half into Star Rail's release, where Shenhe had not gotten a rerun throughout the entire time Star Rail had been out. Risley went a year and a half before his rerun. Charlotte, the 4-star Chi-Chi, has not been on a banner but once since her initial debut a year and 8 months ago. This curse was only very recently broken with the release of Citlali, who, as we all know, is one of the most meta-defining characters in the game because she is a BIS support for one of the most meta-defining characters in the game. But it seems that's all starting to change. You see, I made a Cryo video about 8 months ago talking about how the element as a whole had completely fallen off of the map, and players really weren't talking about it anymore. And at the time, that was true, and it's still currently true right now. We've only had one more release of a Cryo character with the form of Escafia, who is a Cryo sub-DPS support. But it looks like that's starting to change. You see, throughout Genshin's history, pretty much every element gets its time to dominate within its region of choice. Unless your name is Natlan, which for some reason only has one Pyro character, every other region specifically focuses on its element. And we are seeing the beginning of a setup for what will be a Cryo-dominated meta. We can see this with the release of Escafia, who is very clearly meant to be a BIS support for the newest Cryo DPS, Skirt. And while I can't go into kit details in this video because I have editors to pay and I don't want to lose lose all the money I invest into getting this video out. You can find more details of that on my channel. I can't even link it if I wanted to, but I'm sure a lot of you know what's going to happen when Skirt comes out. Not only that, we have other very anticipated characters that are going to be Cryo related. For example, Capitano is sitting right there on that throne, waiting for us to go up there and pick him up bridal style and take him home. And of course, the region of Chesnaya is coming up very, very soon, and we are likely going to see a revival of one of the most dead elements in the game. Now, am I saying that it's going to be the best in the game again? Probably not. Cryo suffers from the fact that it doesn't really have a lot of overpowered reactions to take advantage of. It has always been a bit more of a support element, with the ability to CC enemies, shred resistance for physical, and only one DPS side in the form of Melt, but it can also be used to support Pyro characters too, which have been much more dominating in the meta for the longest time. If a Cryo character wants to be good, their multipliers are just going to have to make up for the shortcomings in the base kit. That being said, with the release of Chesnaya, we're likely going to see a buff with the Cryo element. I know some of you might think this is not going to happen because it's never happened before, but it actually has, with the Universal Elemental Mastery buff that came out in version 2.8. And even if that doesn't happen, with the release of the Tsaritsa, a Cryo Archon who we have waited for almost 6 years now, I am highly certain that we are going to see some sort of shine through of this old decrepit element. We will have started Genshin with Cryo on top, and we will end Genshin with Cryo on top, unfortunately. So if you like your Cryo reps, don't feel bad. Your time is coming up soon, and hey, it could always be worse. You could be a Geo man. But yeah, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe. You made it to the end, you might as well. See you on the next one. Peace, peace.